Happy Wednesday, everybody. Very fitting that we have The Clash on the Fox playing right now. Great track off of London Calling. My understanding is this was a last-minute recording, and I think it was Mick Jones recording this without Joe Strummer, but this could be apocryphal. If you know the true story of Train in Vain, post it up in the comments right here. But just a great track on an already great album. And it just happens to be playing, and maybe it's because Lisa D is going to be on the show in a little bit. It's Whiskey Wednesdays with Lisa D. I'm having a beer, and if you can, and if you're of age and you're feeling like it, you should pour yourself a beverage as well and join us on the show today. DeMarcus, good to see you. Lisa, I will not make you wait. I see Lisa's comment coming up. We'll get you on right away. But first, Peach, I'm doing well. Let me post this comment and pin it. Here we go. So it's pinned at the bottom. That's the Powered by People website right down there. And then right underneath that is a question box that you can ask a question of Lisa D at. Powered by People, we are helping to organize, raise, and then deploy volunteers to the food banks all over Texas. If you are able, because you are of the right age, you don't have any underlying conditions, if you're able to volunteer at a food bank, we need your help. We are seeing the longest lines, bar none, maybe even worse than in the Great Depression, at our food banks across Texas. Lines that stretch miles long, thousands of cars, 10,000 cars on one day in San Antonio, Texas, nearly 7,000 cars in El Paso last week on just one day. Folks who are newly out of work, who cannot make ends meet, who cannot feed themselves or their families, they need our help. And when we show up by signing up at Powered by People and signing up for a volunteer shift, when we show up for that shift, we literally help to package the food, put it into a box, and then place that box into the car of that person who otherwise would not be able to have that help. And if we don't show up to do that, there's not going to be enough people to help everyone who needs it right now. You can also make donations that go directly to Texas food banks, financial donations at that same link. We could use your help. And then lastly, if you're unable to volunteer in person, you can volunteer remotely by telephone. I was on an 80-person Zoom phone bank for food banks last night with amazing people, some of whom are on this live feed right now. And we made over 2,000 calls to various communities in Texas, raising volunteers for the food bank. So if you want to join one of those phone banks for food banks, they're fun, they're effective, and they raise the volunteers we need. You can also sign up at this link right here. Last thing before we bring Lisa on, we had one of the most amazing experiences, at least of my life, which was to meet Jose Andres and to listen to him talk about how we feed this country, and to listen to him talk about what it's like to first come to America as an immigrant. I posted just a clip of that interview on Twitter just now. If you haven't seen that yet, it's really powerful and it's really beautiful. What America meant to him, what it means to him, and how he has made America better through his presence and his work and the jobs he's created, the people he's fed, and those he's brought together. And I thought Jose Andres was such a beautiful contrast to the stuff that Donald Trump is saying right now, trying to make us afraid of immigrants again, who will bring in this invisible enemy, whatever that code language is supposed to mean or trigger in us, and completely ignoring the fact that this country is fed by immigrants who literally are in the fields picking the food upon which we depend, who are packaging it, who are processing it, who, when we go back to restaurants, will be working in the kitchens to prepare the food, will be serving it to us, will be cleaning up in those restaurant kitchens afterwards. They're also the ones who are working in the hospitals, who are saving our asses as a country right now. A quarter of the doctors and nurses and frontline healthcare staff born in another country. Good chance if your life is saved during this crisis, it will be saved by an immigrant. And by the way, they are the ones very often coming up with the innovations and inventions, filing the patents for, among other things, the cures and the vaccines that will help us get through this and protect this country going forward. So to close off America from immigrants is to deny America, and certainly deny who we are at our best, and to run counter to our self-interest. It's not just about doing the right thing from a moral perspective. If you're just looking at our self-interest, we welcome immigrants to this country. All right. Having said that, let me bring on Lisa Degliantoni, who, I realize I failed to give any kind of biography for her last time we had her on 2 weeks ago. Lisa has run major national magazines, I think Psychology Today and Spy magazine, for anybody who remembers that from the 1990s. She was the managing editor. She's run newspapers. She's run web development companies. She has run TV stations, or at least the news programs on TV stations. She's running an art gallery right now in Evanston, and she, I think, is helping to run a maker's space in that same community. And there's many other things you need to know about her, but I wanted to give somewhat of a formal biography about Lisa D before we bring on the own show, the Lisa D Show, which you can watch on Instagram. She'll tell us what days and what times we can watch. But here's Lisa. Lisa, how are you?
Hi, that's how I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. Are you drinking whiskey?
Cheers to you. I'm drinking whiskey out of my little fucker mug from
Your little fucker. Do you have a big fucker as well?
No. Little fucker. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good. And how's the day been so far?
It's been good. With this situation, there's a lot of up and down, as you know, emotionally. And I'm trying to FOTP, as we do. It helps to have Amanda Evanston in the gallery right now with her positive florals. So for the most part, it's very good. I am healthy. My family's healthy. All the chickens are alive. I know a lot of your viewers want to know a lot about the chickens, but that's not what this show's about. So they can DM me and I can answer questions.
So when I was talking to Amy just now, we were on the front porch and she's like, well, what are you going to talk to Lisa about? And I said, well, I don't know. Do you have any suggestions? She said, well, why don't you guys just relax, have a good time, tell some fun stories from New York. And it was hard for me to think of a story that we could tell in front of other people. But one story, and I kind of alluded to this, I think you and I have never really talked about this, but I think the way that we met was essentially a blind date.
That's a rewrite of your fantasy history. It was not a blind date.
My uncle said there's this amazing woman, Lisa. She's my friend Mark's sister. She's really smart, beautiful woman. You've got to meet her. And I don't know what your brother said about me to convince you to have dinner with me, but we ended up having this dinner or a beer. I don't actually remember the first time we met.
That's not even what happened.
Instead of dating, we became very good friends. That was like 25 years ago. That's my memory. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You are such a liar, because that totally wasn't what happened.
That wasn't what happened?
No.
Okay. What happened?
There was that crazy Tags sushi joint across the street from my brother's apartment in Manhattan. And I have no friends, and I moved there, and Mark is like, oh, Brooks's nephew, Beto, lives there. So you, allegedly on a blind date, wouldn't have brought your friend Mike, which you did.
That was my move. Actually, I used to bring Mike on my first date with Amy Parker. I brought Mike Stevens. Absolutely. No. Yes.
And then I thought you guys were gay because 30 minutes into which is totally fine. I'm open-minded. It's not who you screw, it's what you do. That's my t-shirt. But I thought you guys were gay because 35 minutes into the dinner, I guess you pounded way too much sake, and the two of you went into the bathroom and didn't return. The two of you went into the bathroom, which was the size of the back seat of a small car, and you didn't return for a long time because I think Mike was getting sick from sake.
Mike was a little sick, and then I was probably a little sick afterwards. I remember we'd ridden to Tags on our bikes.
Yes.
Tags was in Manhattan. We lived in Brooklyn. We rode over the Williamsburg Bridge, met you on that blind date. And Tags, the restaurant, was the size of a telephone booth. The restaurant itself had like one table in it.
I'm fact checking this story. It had one table, and he used to put mannequins in the window because he didn't want customers. He was a super freak. He didn't like people. But if it was a blind date, what was the problem with me?
There was no problem. It just turns out we were better
Boom.
friends than we
Right.
were, romantic partners.
Well, I love whatever retelling that you've invented about that fun story we had, because that was
So you grew up in the Bay Area.
correct.
You went to college in San Diego,
San Diego State. I'm still so
SDSU.
pissed. I
Go
laugh.
Aztecs.
Oh, go
And
Aztecs.
what brought you to New York?
I wanted to pursue a career in magazine publishing. I wanted to be Anna Wintour and work in a high rise and fire people and work in magazines. So I went to New York. I knew only my brother, who had been living there for a long time. And I started like an internship at Library Journal, which, yeah,
I used to read that.
sexy publication. And then I got my job as an intern at Sussex Publishing with Joe Coleman, who was the heir to Coleman Mustards. He was my first boss.
Yeah.
He owned Spy Magazine, which we had brought back from the dead, Mother Earth News, and Psychology Today. And I was 22 and everybody was like 50. And that was my first main job.
And you were the managing editor, right, of those
Yeah.
3 publications?
But what I didn't realize, it was because everybody ahead of me kept getting fired in that position. And they were like, oh, well, who's the person we can pay the least amount of money, because that's publishing, you make 10 cents. So they, found me. I did that job probably for like 3 years, but it was insane. I worked like 6 days a week, and it's where I met some of my besties, Jenny Cahill, Molly Miller, who you know. I worked with Maura Shea for a while, Matt Scanlon, Bruno Maddox, like Dan Bova, a ton of great friends. But I only lasted 3 years. Then I freaked out and moved to Durango and became a whitewater rafting guide.
And I remember, and we can talk about this, I remember I was packing up my belongings from New York. Yeah, I'm going to tell the sanitized version of the story.
Oh no, my internet's out.
And Mike Stevens of the Moxie Theater, who recommended Fantastic Fungi, which is an amazing documentary about mushrooms. And anyhow, I just watched that the other night with my kids. I'll tell you about that in a second.
Okay.
But Mike and I, in 1998, I bought a truck for $1,000 in Long Island, got it fixed up so that it actually ran, and put all my stuff in it because I was leaving New York for Texas. And we drove to El Paso, but we stopped in Durango to see Lisa D, because you were a whitewater rafting guide. And we hung out with you for like 3 or 4 days. It was really fun.
So fun.
That was
oh my God, that was one of the best times ever. And we all stayed, can I tell well, I don't know. We stayed in one little, no, it's fine. It's fine.
No, don't tell that.
It was so fun. It was really, really fun.
This is a challenge, is to be able to talk to you about our shared past and be able to talk about it in a public way. Tell me what I could have done better in introducing you. How do you want to be introduced? What have you done, and what are you doing right now? You have the Lisa D show, which I've tuned into a couple times. Great show, talking to artists in Evanston.
I had to wash down this whiskey. It's so strong. It's called Larceny. I don't know what that is, but it sounds very illegal.
Yep.
It's very hard to intro me because I am a jack of all trades kind of human. But my new tagline that I'm trying to float and test out there as part of my brand management strategy is, I don't make things, I make things happen.
Whoa,
right? Boom. It's a great tagline.
It's not who you screw, it's what you do. And I don't make things, I make things happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the other side of the t-shirt.
Right. That is the other side of the t-shirt. So and I think there's also a phrase that somebody was trying to float, multi-potentialite, like jack of all trades, master of none. New word is multi-potentialite. But I want to move more into, I don't mind production, but I want it to not be media production, which was the first 25 years of my career. I want it to be art and community building production. That's my focus.
All right, I've got a couple of things from you. First question from Jack. The secret.
Oh, no, Jack, no.
Yeah, Jack's asking the first question. The secret best part of New York. So not the obvious stuff that everybody knows, but what was beyond Tag's one table restaurant with the very small bathroom? What's the secret most amazing thing about New York?
The secret most amazing thing about New York for me was the people who I met were all on very, and I hate to be Brene Brown, but on very authentic journeys. There's a lot of suffering, elective suffering economically that you go through there. Oftentimes you're an intern and or you make 5 cents. So people are living and not with a lot of money. And there's a tremendous amount of culture and things to interact with for free, like walking across the Brooklyn Bridge and or walking across, Central Park. There's just all of these moments where you can do things for free to really explore who you are. And I loved that part. And then I loved connecting with other humans who were doing exactly that. And I feel like meeting you and meeting the flight attendant posse, I don't know if you remember them at all.
I do.
A lot of friends who are flight attendants, but just the secret part is that you can build a beautiful life out of nothing, really. And I don't think I knew that until I moved out to New York and I had nothing. And I built an incredibly beautiful life. But I mean, I lived in total squalor. I didn't see the floor below me in the house that I lived in like Beto did, but I lived in squalor.
Those parties at Wallabout, which is where I lived in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, were so much fun. Okay, hold on a second. We're gonna this is everyone who's watching this. This is your lucky day. I'm gonna just do a speed round of questions that you've asked. Cynthia's wanting to show a picture of Lisa D circa Durango. Can I show that, Lisa? And it's a favorable picture.
Okay, it's flattering, because if it's ugly, I don't want to see it.
It's flattering. Look at Lisa D, folks.
Look at her. Who is that girl? She's so fine. No way.
Yeah. Okay, so done, Cynthia. Okay, so here we go. Speed round from folks. And by the way, with the exception of Jose Andres and Shannon Watts and Cleveland Gilman and Mike Stevens, you've been the most anticipated guest on this show. So people are excited. All right, from Wesley, have you been to Burning Man? Would you go?
Oh, God, no, sorry.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
What is your opinion on 5G, the dangers of EMF and radiation exposure?
I think they're totally made up. Conspiracy theory. Next.
Gosh, this is really good. Would you consider graffiti art? If so, why is it considered vandalism? Answer that question.
Interesting, because it's non-sanctioned walls, so it is vandalism when people don't give you permission. I totally think it is incredible art. I love graffiti. Next.
How do you spot a naughty neighbor?
How do you spot a naughty neighbor? One who holds the gaze far too long.
Okay. How can art... This is a good question. On the heels of the Clash magically appearing at the beginning of today's episode, how can art hold government and officials accountable to the people, especially now? So Trump is totally fucking this up, wasted 2 months to prepare this country, get the necessary tests, the PPE, the ventilators, is exercising no management nationally of the food supply system or medical supply system, just shit show. How do art, whether it's that or something else that moves you or that you're concerned about or that you're angry about, as the Clash said, anger can be power. What is the role of art in holding those in positions of public trust accountable?
I mean, so there is the vein of art like the Bob Ross, Thomas Kincaid, reflections of beauty that is, I totally respect people making art that way. But for me, art is a direct mirror to power, always, whether it be music, theater, visual, like painting, whatever it is. I feel that art that is contemporary and poignant is always a direct reflection of how people feel about the power structure. And if you look at the type of art that was being made during the Obama administration versus the art that's being made now, people are pissed, they're angry, they're verbal, they're, so I feel like what it does, if people in power look to it, which they often don't unless it's in the public sector, like graffiti, they're not confronted with it. It calls to action. It reflects their shitty behavior and makes them hopefully, if not change their ways, at least analyze their ways and look at them in a different way.
It's also can be incredibly cathartic to hear someone or see someone connect with what is so essential or so wrong at a moment. And my train of thought on this is, you and I are of the relative same vintage. Growing up in the 1980s, listening to punk rock in the era of Ronald Reagan, who was fighting these wars in Central America, who was vilifying the poor, who was incarcerating people, especially black and brown people, at an alarming rate. You know, punk rock gave voice to the frustration that so many people felt and called our attention to things that we had every reason to be pissed off about. And who knows if it didn't have some effect on how people ended up acting politically, how they voted down the road. Okay, we're going to switch topics here, Lisa.
Okay.
That was too long on that. Were you,
okay, sorry.
When you were a young adult in New York in the 1990s, did you know anyone who lived the Friends lifestyle? So everyone who is not from New York, who lived in the 90s, maybe thought that's what New York was like. Did anyone actually live that life that you remember?
No, I did not. That would be like fancy friends. I did not have fancy friends. It would have been like 3 people living together, but one room, and like a really, really tiny, dirty apartment. Not freaking massive loss at all. No.
Okay.
Okay. Your fans want me to get you to say the F word, and I think that that's funny that they get so excited when you're profane. Like, that's kind of cute.
How was movie night, Lisa?
Oh my God, the mutual masturbation, which I am still paying for that. I can't say, I'm sorry.
No,
it's fine. It's fine. No kids watch this.
She asked about movie night. She did not ask you to say that.
That was movie night. That was the whole thing, Parasite. Well, one roommate very verbally and out loud guessed every single thing before it was about to happen. I was like, shut your mouth. And then the other roommate was like, that's not very interesting. Yes, my hair is dyed gray, you freaking jerk. Who's Coyote? No, it's natural. And you know why it's this color? Because my husband, Dave Ford, one day I was in the bathroom box dyeing it like a jackass, like whatever, 10 years ago. And he's like, you know what your hair looks like when you do that? And I thought he was like coming on to me and was going to be like all hot and sexy. And he's like, it looks like a fucked up Lego doll with the plastic head. You should let it go.
Not nice at all. Not nice at all.
Okay.
Okay. Serious question from JMDR.
It's the DOL situation that you really have to evaluate. That's called division of labor. We have that discussion once a week. Once a week, you have to come to terms with whoever your roommates are, whether they're your partners, your spouses, whatever they're called, and you got to have the DOL discussion. And if you're having problems and they're like, nah, I do more because I do X, make a list. Start auditing what you do so that you can share. Because chicks get the gender unfair, do more bullshit. And especially now in lockdown, ladies are stressed. And that's why I get a fuck mug full of whiskey on a Wednesday. Oh, love you, Beto. Everybody loves Beto. I've been thinking about box dye. Are there more questions? Or
Wait, can I?
Bye. I gotta sign off. I have to go.
Can I tell you something? A true conversation I just had with Amy. Are you ready?
Yes.
So she takes the morning with Henry, who needs to be more actively homeschooled because he's in 3rd grade. The other kids can Zoom into their classes and do independent study. And then I take the afternoon with Henry, right? And so I'd finished my time with Henry, and I was in the kitchen, and I was kind of frustrated because I just hadn't been able to get anything done all day. And I was like, Amy, you got to help me out. I just feel so scattered and fractured. I'm starting things, but I cannot finish them. I've got phone calls and emails building up. I just can't go deep enough into the things that I want to work on right now. And I got to figure this out. And she just looked at me and she said, welcome to my fucking life for the last.
She said the F word? She did not.
She didn't. I added that, but she doesn't have to say it for me to hear it, if that makes sense.
Can Because she's so classy. She doesn't need
She
to
is.
use
She,
that
I
word.
mean,
She's
she
a
was like,
classy woman.
she really gave me this like, oh, that's cute that you're having this challenge of like balancing how you're going to do your work and be a parent.
Yeah.
So I hear you on that. And I've got to figure out how to do a better job which we will, once we get through this pandemic, how to remember that Amy just told me that's been her life for the last, for however long we've had kids.
This is the beauty of this pandemic. If we can see laughter in hell, Esther Perel did a beautiful op-ed on the New York Times today. First of all, she's so sexy and French and gorgeous. I would listen to her read cereal boxes. But she was saying that there is laughter in hell. And if we do not use this time to redesign our love, to redesign how we use things, to redesign how we spend time with our roommate, kid, spouses, we're never going to take that time. So don't wait for the pandemic to be over to do the DOL discussion. Do it now, and do it on Thursdays at 9 a.m. over coffee. Like, do it when the kids aren't awake and you can just, or your kids probably wake up earlier than that. But just start that conversation now. Did I strategically time? No, in fact, I blame Beto for this live stream. So Jack just asked me if I start my live stream at 6 o'clock. I don't blame you. I should say thank you, because we were really struggling how to help Evanston Made Artist members, of which there are 300, connect with the public with this pandemic, because we're taking away shows. We're taking away all their ability to engage with the public. And I do this interview with you 2 weeks ago, and I was like, I never do video, ever. I never do anything live. This was so much fun. It was such a great response. And just like you showed that hot picture of me, like I'm able to be like, oh, look at this Yeti I made and share it. I really made that. Even though I don't make things, I make things happen. I made a Yeti with Rachel Nader. So this has been a super awesome avenue for us to support artists. So Jack, no, it's just 6 o'clock felt like a really good time to do it. But what's fun is all the Beto stands, which is a word I just learned. When your live stream ends, they all jump onto mine, which is just so beautiful.
Lisa, what should we be watching on Netflix?
Oh, right. I knew you'd ask that. So, I've been watching a lot of stand-up. I've been watching a lot of comedy. There's a guy named
Who's your favorite stand-up of all time?
Oh, Steve Martin for sure.
Really?
I love, if Steve Martin is watching this, marry me, Steve Martin, I love you. I love Steve Martin. He's so awesome. I listened to like Let's Get Small from like 1970. I just think he's brilliant.
Now, is that an influence from your husband, who is also a big Steve Martin fan?
No, he's not.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Okay. No, he doesn't.
Maybe it went the other way. Where does Richard Pryor rank?
I was going to say Dave Ford is like Richard Pryor.
I'm Richard Pryor.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not Richard Pryor, but I like Richard Pryor.
Well, Steve Martin is just ludicrous, and he's just, I love him. But yeah, no, I think he's super fun. And I've been watching a lot of stand-up because shit is fakaked right now, and I need to laugh. Amy Schumer, all of like anybody. Yeah.
Okay, so this
was
close.
So fun. Can we please do this again? And can I ask you questions next time?
Yes. Why don't we do that next time? We'll switch it up. You ask the questions, but let me ask you one last question, because this was my favorite part of last time you were on. We talked about what the future is going to look like. Oh. And I thought you gave such a thoughtful answer. And I don't know if you had a chance to tune into the Jose Andres show yesterday.
Beautiful. Totally beautiful. I can't believe I'm going after him. That's embarrassing.
And I know that's a tough one to follow, but and you're doing very well, by the way.
Thank you.
You're doing very well.
Mil gracias.
But one of the things he talked about was how food is going to change after COVID. And he talked about, every day being Thanksgiving, which sounds cheesy when I say it and sounds profound when Chef
you're going
Jose...
to lie and say that the Thanksgiving dinner was good. That's what you're going to do, is I thought that was...
Because it's not just the meal or the way the turkey tastes. It is the fact that you're hanging out with Lisa and Dave and Miles and Louie. and you're together and you're laughing and you're drinking wine or whiskey or whatever you're doing. You're telling stories and you're just together without devices, without distraction, and how important that is to our civilization and to our families and to our success and to our mental health. And he kept talking about food bringing us together, and also the way that some people are kept away from good food deserts, the rising levels of obesity and diabetes that we have in the United States, which are some of the underlying conditions that make it harder for people to survive COVID-19 or whatever comes next afterwards. So his vision of what the future would be in America if everything works out well was really exciting and really positive. And you started to talk a little bit about that last time. I wondered if you had any kind of closing thoughts about where you see us after COVID-19, what our lives are going to be like, how we'll be different, how we'll be better, how we'll be worse. What you have already seen change in your life. This is a Beto O'Rourke 6-part question. What you've already seen change that you might like to keep changed going forward.
The only thing I will say that we will all come out of this with is a better understanding of what matters and what's important. And really, at the end of the day, we are all forced to be like, are these roommates important? Is this food important? Is this house important? We are all having to deal with it every day, all day. That's what we're all going to realize. Oprah just started a live video. She's just trying to take my thunder. I'm sick of her jumping into my shit. No, I just think we're going to value stuff more. But Beto, I'm hanging up on you because now I
You got to start your show. You got to start your show.
But people are, well, okay, bye. I really appreciate you. Thank you for getting me to start a show. Thank you for moving me to El Paso. Thank you for introducing me to my husband.
Let's tell that story next time we're on, how I introduced you to your husband. When
I was playing the mispronunciation game. Have you seen Teutonic? Okay, bye. I'm going to click out. Thanks, Beto. I love you, and I love Amy and the kids. Goodbye. I'm
Lisa D, ladies and gentlemen. I've thought about having Lisa on every day if her schedule were to allow, and then we don't have to worry about booking guests or and I could just sit back and let Lisa talk and answer your questions. And I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up and hearts and yeses, so maybe we'll do that. Thank you all for joining us. Want to tell you that we've got someone really exciting on tomorrow. Michael Sorrell is the president of Paul Quinn College, which is one of the most innovative institutions of higher learning in the United States today. Also happens to be one of our historically Black colleges and the pride of Texas. And beyond that, and beyond what Paul Quinn College represents, Michael Sorrell is just one of the great thinkers of our time in terms of how he sees what's happening in this country and how he sees what this country could be going forward. So I'm super excited for you to have the chance to meet him. And I'm really excited to be able to see him again, albeit via these screens and not in person. I know you're going to really like hearing from him. And so please make sure to tune in tomorrow, 4:30 Mountain Standard Time. To all of our healthcare workers and everyone who works in healthcare, the folks cleaning the bathrooms and cleaning the ICU rooms, doctors and nurses included, thank you for what you're doing. I'm going to do my part by staying at home, by not going out, by heeding the best public health practices that are out there, and not necessarily listening to our president or even our governor or those who want to reopen this country prematurely. I want to make sure that we save every single life that we can, including the lives of those healthcare workers, including the lives of the cashier at Walgreens, including the lives of those stocking the shelves at our grocery stores, including everyone who's in an essential job. Essential because it protects the public health, or essential because they're the only ones earning a paycheck in their families, and they have to go out and earn that $7.25 an hour, which is the minimum wage here in El Paso, Texas, and through much of this state, in order to feed their families and be able to take care of themselves and the ones they love. In order to honor them and to make sure we're doing our part, let's all stay home, let's all wash our hands, let's all keep 6 feet distance whenever we are out in public, and let's all say a prayer or offer our debt of gratitude to those who are putting their lives on the line for all of us. Hope to see you all tomorrow. Michael Sorrell will join us from Paul Quinn College. We'll see you then. Love you all. Bye-bye.